Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting version of Chip Talks Podcast. So, today we're going to continue our diving deep into the Endocannabinoid System series, and we're going to talk about pain and kind of what pain is with our endocannabinoid eyes. So, if you listen to a pain management doctor, or you have been to medical school, or you research this stuff, pain is not real well explained. So again, you're a vehicle, and I should be able to explain how pain works. I should be able to explain what causes pain, what mitigates pain. It's not that hard. So I don't know why what I'm getting ready to present to you isn't part of every single kind of basic anatomy class and things like this, because pain is such a major part of our society. I mean, good God, we had a opiate addiction crisis, due to pain. All those people are still hurting. Likely we have a lot of medical marijuana patients due to pain. So what is pain, and how does it work? And are there, we certainly know medical marijuana in certain cases will help with pain, but are there other things, and is that explainable? I mean, it has to be explainable. It can't be like, oh, here's a magical thing that will make you, instantly out of pain. No, it's gotta, you got to be able to explain the knobs and levers of how that works, or it's not a viable solution. It's magic and woohoo. So we don't live in the world of magic and woohoo. We live in the world of science and explainability and logic. So let's look at pain. Let's look at pain in a little bit more detail, shall we? Okay, so let me get over here to what you guys are seeing real quick. All right, so right off, some of this will be a repeat from what you guys have heard before. So we're going to go right back to omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids at some point, because we always have to, because we're killing ourselves because we don't understand that. But right off, so let me and again, I love the AI on Google. It's sort of getting better. I think it lies to you sometimes. It just depends on, what questions you're asking. But I like to kind of that we're getting a response here that's easier than pilfering through a whole lot of research. So I could just pull up NIH research papers, but it's kind of funner to use the AI. So COX2 is a major enzyme neuroreceptor inside of you, protein inside of you. And it is an enzyme. Well, I guess it's classified as an enzyme, so we'll call it an enzyme, but it's an enzyme. Enzymes are protein. Receptors are protein. It's all protein, boys and girls. It's just protein made by DNA that's going to do work. It's either going to sit on the outside of a cell like a receptor and sing songs and receive songs, or it's going to do work like COX2 does. Okay, so it's an enzyme that's primarily found at sites of inflammation and is responsible for pain and inflammation. What? It's responsible for pain and inflammation. So if you want to know what's responsible for pain and inflammation, it's this enzyme called COX2. All right. COX2 releases prostaglandins. We're going to talk about them a little bit more in a second, which mediate pain, inflammation, and fever. So prostaglandins are what cause pain, but also what mediate pain. All right. So, but they come from this enzyme that's doing work to produce prostaglandins. So the COX2 is the worker that's making prostaglandins that kind of go out and do things. Okay. So prostaglandins can both cause and reduce pain. All right. So you got kind of, let's say, good ones and bad ones, depending on, your tolerance for pain. They are signaling molecules that are produced at sites of tissue damage or infection as part of the body's healing process. Okay. Prostaglandins can cause inflammation, which can lead to pain, swelling, redness, and fever. For example, prostaglandin E2 is known to cause pain, swelling, and redness. Prostaglandins can also act in nerve endings and the central nervous system to promote pain sensations. So, E2s, prostaglandin E2s are the things that are kind of responsible, let's say, for inflammation, but also for causing the swelling, the redness, and the pain sensation associated with our pain response, because this is part of our pain response. Okay. And they also are responsible for sensitizing those nerve endings. So if you're not paying attention, you're gonna you're going to hurt bad enough to, pay attention to whatever your body's wanting you to pay attention to. Now, right now, we're in such a whacked out and messed up state that this is so over signaled. And we'll talk about why in just a second. But this system is kind of broken in us due to how we eat and what we're eating right now. So it's sort of broken right now, but in a perfect machine, we would have these prostaglandin E2s that would cause us to inflame and cause us to hurt, right? So if you touch a hot stove, you don't want to leave your hand on that hot stove until your hand burns off. You need a pain response to tell you, move your hand, it's burning, wow, right? So these are important and essential. They're part of our machinery, but we don't need to be stuck in the, on button all the time, which is kind of what it looks like is happening. And we'll talk about why in a second. But anyway, COX-2 is the enzyme. Prostaglandins are the method of action, and prostaglandin E2 in particular is our pain guy. All right, so let's continue on with our journey. Now, this is another kind of different point, all right, but an important point. So where does COX-2 come from as an enzyme? Well, it comes from something called arachidonic acid, which is part of your endocannabinoid system, okay? So arachidonic acid, there's competition for arachidonic acid, and this is the important thing, okay? So there's competition for this arachidonic acid. Now, in certain immune responses and certainly in an inflammatory response, you can just see this by this branch. You've got basically, you're not going to put it this way. You're not going to make as many LOXs or P450s if you're stuck in inflammation. All your resources, all this arachidonic acid will go to COX-2, COX-1 to be able to make prostaglandins, to be able to do kind of what your body thinks it needs to do. So it's not like you're going to go into a critical phase of deficiency, but you're going to have that gas pegged over here in the COX-1, COX-2 direction if you're chronically inflamed, if you're having a big pain response, and that's going to hurt your P450s are how you detoxify your body. Okay, so you need P450, you need the whole P450 process because that's how you get rid of bad stuff. This is your drug, kind of get rid of process, and what pharma is, very concerned about over here. So these guys are interesting on their own. And this whole tree is a very interesting tree. Let's just put that from all the way up here at the phospholipids. But the point here is, again, COX-2 responsible for pain via prostaglandins, and COX-2 is broken down as a resource from arachidonic acid, which there's competition for. Okay, so there's competition for it. Here's a better, gosh, I guess I could have just gone to that one. We might come back to this in a second because I want to talk about this a little bit more. Okay, so COX-2 is an enzyme that plays a major role in inflammation. It's a common mechanism of disease. So again, if we look at any disease, well, and let's get this last point here. So COX-2 enzymes make prostaglandins that are mainly involved in inflammation, and these E2s are involved in their pain response. Let's look at Alzheimer's and COX-2. I don't really think it matters. COX-2 levels are elevated in the brain during the development and progression of Alzheimer's disease. Let's look at pathogenic infection. Isn't this fun to do internet searches together? Certainly when we don't know what's going to happen. Should be scary, but I'm very confident in what I know about this, so it's not scary at all. So COX-2 is an enzyme that's induced by bacterial and viral infections and plays a complex role in anti-pathogenic immunity. So this guy is, the gas is stepped on in COX-2 in any kind of inflammatory event, pain event, in disease. Look at this. Watch this. Autism, just for fun, because I kind of already know the answer here. Yeah, so you can see here that, there's actual research here talking about COX-2 prostaglandins in autism, all right? Arthritis, it doesn't really matter the disease state that we put up there. COX-2 will be involved because it's part of your body's process to mitigate pain and mitigate inflammation and kind of, your body's trying to do something and it's trying to get rid of an infection. Okay, Now, this is major point, all right? Major point. I've made this point in all of these deep dive videos. I'm going to make it again right now. You have two things that you have to eat that are critical for your endocannabinoid system. Your body can't make these things. So it's kind of like a teeter-totter, right? So if you eat more than one, the teeter-totter is going to kind of go in a certain direction. If you eat more of the other, the teeter-totter is going to go in the other direction. Well, in particular, I'm talking about omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, all right? In our diet right now, you eat a ton of omega-6 fatty acids. You get plenty. You eat a lot. And it's mainly because omega-6s are in corn and corn products. And you'll find that corn and high fructose corn syrup and corn's in everything that we eat. You can go conspiracy on that one, and you're likely right if you go conspiracy on that one. But again, so omega-6s are inflammatory precursors. So we build a lot of inflammatory precursors, and in particular, prostaglandin E2s, which is the point of why I'm telling you this. Again, what causes pain? Prostaglandin E2s and an overabundance of them. What causes too many of these guys? Omega-6 fatty acids. But it's in relation to omega-3s. So if we balance the teeter-totter, if I eat one omega-3 for every omega-6 that I eat, I'm going to have a balanced teeter-totter, and I'm not going to have the pain response that we have now, and I'm not going to have the inflammatory response that we have now. If I disbalance that teeter-totter in the way that we all do right now, where we eat way more omega-6s, like 40 more omega-6s than we eat omega-3s, what's going to happen is I wind this very reactionary spring inside of my body. And again, it doesn't matter who you are. This is generic. This happens for everybody, okay? So I don't care how healthy you are or how, wonderful you are. If I feed you a bunch of omega-6s over omega-3s over time, I'm going to wind this real tight reactionary spring in the inflammatory direction. And anything is going to cause a pain response. Anything is going to cause you to inflame, and you're not going to be able to mitigate it, because you don't have the stuff to pull it back. You don't have the omega-3s to deflame that, to pull that reaction back. So we've got way too many of one that's inflammatory, and we got nothing of the other that helps us deflame. Okay, so you'll hear me make this point 100,000 times, because these are the guys that feed our endocannabinoid system. Your endocannabinoid system is your master regulatory system. And you don't need marijuana. You don't need, all this stuff. You just need to understand omega-3 and omega-6. We'll keep making stuff for you until you get it figured out, but balance your omega-3, omega-6. That is the best thing that you can do for your health. And this is the very reason why. So if you're in pain, eat more omega-3s. You're going to say, Chip, opiates don't get my pain, and medical marijuana doesn't get my pain. What crack are you smoking? Some chia seed oil will get my pain. Yes, again, it's not going to be an immediate relief, but it's going to condition your body to better handle that pain, and you're not going to hurt so bad or so easy. Okay, that's what I'm telling you, and that's why this is so important. If you're a medical marijuana person, I use medical marijuana for my pain. But I'm also taking a whole lot of omega-3s because I know that over time, my pain will get better. And it has. I'm not in nearly the amount of pain I was in, 6 to 8 years ago. And, nor is my wife. And she's level 10, literally almost still every day. So we know a lot about pain and how pain works here. But again, you can't mitigate pain without omega-3s. You can become in pain with a bunch of omega-6s, but you'll never reel that reaction back. You'll never dial that back without omega-3s, because that's the way your body works. You're pushing on one knob and you can't push on the other without something to push on it with. Okay? Eat more omega-3s. All right. So PGE2 is a COX metabolite of arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid. I don't know how you pronounce that. Arachidonic is good enough for me, I guess. And omega-6 PUFA is a potent mediator of inflammatory and cell proliferation. Dietary supplements rich in omega-3 PUFA reduce the concentrations of 2 series prostaglandins and increase the synthesis of 3 series prostaglandins, which are believed to be less inflammatory. So more PGE3s over PGE2s will help you mitigate a pain response. And again, will be less painful, I guess is just the bottom line. So trying to give you kind of the underlying science of why this works, but this is why it works. And again, this isn't rocket science. It's you work in a really logical and easy to understand way. It's you have master precursors and your body kind of uses those and breaks them down into other stuff, breaks those down into other stuff, does things with them. If you're not getting this master precursor, you can't do any of that. So that's what I'm telling you. Omega-3 is the master of all master precursors, as is omega-6. We get plenty of omega-6, hardly any omega-3. All right. All right, here's the last bit. So there is an actual molecule that helps with pain, that helps mitigate pain. Oh, interestingly, let's look at, well, I'll read you this real quick. So that word, PEA, is a fatty acid amide, an endocannabinoid-like lipid mediator that has been shown to have analgesic, pain-relieving, and anti-inflammatory properties. PEA has been used in control studies to treat chronic pain in adults in various conditions. It may also help with other conditions such as fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, multiple sclerosis, carpal tunnel, and autism, but there isn't much scientific evidence to support these uses. Okay, this is interesting because I don't know, I really don't know what PEA, what action it has at COX-2, but let's just explore it together, shall we? Because it should have. Yeah. Okay. So it reduces COX activity. Okay. And it likely will reduce the genetic expressions of COX, but cool. Yeah. So, and again, COX-2 is important as well, because when you look at, like, if I'm in pain and I call my physician and it's let's say a moderate, so low to moderate amount of pain, my doctor's going to tell me to take, an NSAID, right? A non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Now he's going to tell me to take that drug because guess what that drug does? It has action at COX-2. Okay. So it has action at COX-2 and it basically inhibits that enzyme, which inhibits your body's ability to make these PGE2s, which inhibits the pain response. Okay. So that's the way pharma tries to solve this problem. But these guys aren't safe. I mean, they're not, you couldn't take Tylenol up the FDA's drug development pathway now. It's not safe enough. You couldn't make it into a drug. We still sell it over the counter for some insane reason, but it's not, it wouldn't be a safe drug, okay? Because it's just got too many side effects. However, omega-3s don't. Omega-3s are part of your basic function. So it's almost like in pharma, I don't know if these guys see the problems in the same way that I do. It's logically obvious to me. I'm sure, other researchers and things see these same type things that I'm seeing. But again, why are we fixing a problem with a problem? So let's create a problem with our food source. Let's feed you guys a bunch of omega-6. So you're going to be in a hyperinflammatory state. And then let's use these really harmful drugs instead of nature to treat you. Again, there's a natural way to control your body. You're a natural thing. There's a way, there's something in nature to do anything that I want in your body. You don't need the pharmaceutical system. Okay. You have it within your control. It's sitting right out here in nature. And for pain, again, it's not an immediate relief. So that, omega-3 isn't going to work like an opiate, but it will take away your need for opiates over time. Okay. So omega-3 is the thing that we need in order to build more of these PGE3s that help us mitigate pain. So again, omega-6s are going to build one type of inflammatory type mediator, and omega-3s are going to build another type of anti-inflammatory type mediator. And this is why it says, this is why you'll see stuff like here at the first that we started. COX-2 is an enzyme that's primarily found at sites of inflammation and possible pain and inflammation. It releases prostaglandins, which mediate pain, inflammation, and fever. So again, it can cause pain or take pain away, prostaglandins. So we want to point your prostaglandins in the right way to be able to mediate the pain or get rid of the pain. Let's say get rid of the pain rather than create the pain. Okay. So how do we do that? Omega-3s, 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 omega-3s. Yeah. So the other thing that I might say is all of these things come from dietary fats, our endocannabinoids, right? So PEA is another molecule that is built. Let's do it this way. So PEA is another molecule that's built from dietary fat. So PEA is actually built from saturated fat. Your ability, let's say, to anti-inflame through the prostaglandin route is built through omega-3 fat. So these fats matter, and they matter a lot. PEA kind of should be an inflammatory fat, but yet it's something that we use to help mitigate pain, which is really interesting. Let's see what we get with PEA and pain response, just real quick. Sorry to do this. It's better to have these set up early, but I just want to kind of talk about this a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. So again, the PEA would increase our pain tolerance. That's interesting. So it would increase our sensitivity, let's say, to pain. And that's a little bit different than, getting rid of the pain, which would be done through prostaglandins. So this kind of explains two different kind of routes that you could go. So if I increase or decrease, let's say, your sensitivity to pain while taking away the thing that's causing pain, that's, kind of the perfect storm here. So there's reasons why we don't build PEA. So PEA is something that if I feed you palmitic acid, which is a saturated fat, so palm oil, right? So if you just give you some palm oil, you should build PEA. But there's reasons right now in our microbiome that we don't. And so this is another reason why we're becoming more and more sensitive to pain, and we have more pain, and we have things like an opiate crisis because we don't know how to get out of pain ourselves, and we don't. This isn't again, this isn't hard information to teach. It isn't hard information to find, but it's no one puts it together, and no one's putting it together and kind of presenting it to you as a solution that if you eat a little bit of palm oil and eat more omega-3, that's going to really, really help, with a pain profile. And it doesn't matter if you're at a level 10 or level 1 every day. It just helps your body mitigate. As we begin to learn more and more of these things about our body, we'll be able to, let's say, customize our body. We'll be able to customize our reactions and our, chemical expressions and all this stuff by what we put in our body. And it, kind of should be that easy and obvious, but for whatever reason in our society right now, boy, do we convolute all that. You can't really, if you're a PhD or MD, God love you. I'm sorry that you got siloed down, whatever, pigeonhole you got siloed down. We don't teach our PhDs and MDs and to critically think, anymore. So we don't teach them to do what I do when I do these, presentations, to go kind of strip the bark off the topic and, give you information that has, logical constructs and makes sense. So our researchers aren't really taught to critical think right now. And then they're taught this. It's like, I'm going to teach you about your car. So, if I was going to teach you about your car, I'd teach you about the engine and, how you drive it and how it's got a sensor array and it's kind of always watching stuff and kind of fixes itself as long as I've got the oil and the water, the, hydraulic fluid and all that crap in it that I need. It's going to kind of take care of itself through its own mechanisms, right? Well, you work in a very similar way, okay? But again, that's not the way that we're taught. It's easy to teach you about your endocannabinoid system, about your master regulatory system, about how these systems work and how they're logically constructed, how you eat something and how it's broken down into all these different mediators that help you, right? It's not hard to teach you about that, easy to teach you about that. But yet that's not how we teach doctors. So if you're a doctor, doctor, you're going to, what area of study are you going to be in? Area of biology. I mean, you got to learn some general stuff, but you don't even learn. The endocannabinoid system sits above our central nervous system. It sits above our central nervous system in function. And doc, you didn't even learn about it in school. You might have got CB1 and CB2 in pharmacology, but again, and it's not like you're being deceived or lied to. It's information is being withheld from you. You're being compartmentalized as information. Well, why? What's the big secret? What are we trying to hide here, boys and girls? I think it's logical and obvious that you don't need them. You've got it all right out here in nature. You've got it in our food supply as we begin to understand these principles better. So the good news, boys and girls, is, we can heal ourselves for the most part. Now, if I get shot or run over by a tank or something, please take me to the emergency room, because they are extraordinarily good at acute and traumatic care. That is what they sing at, kind of war stuff and, emergency room stuff. Pharma does a great job there, but not in general health. And again, good Lord, guys, at least teach us about omega-3s. I mean, come on. We're all dying out here because we don't understand these simple principles. All right, so we'll be back next week with another exciting Chip Talks. We'll continue to dive deep in the endocannabinoid system. If you're interested in these subjects, certainly go back and look at the Chip Talks podcast archive on YouTube. Lots and lots and lots of deep dives in the endocannabinoid system, very specific things we talked about over the years. So there's lots of information out there if you are a researcher or a seeker of information like I am. So I'm trying to lay it all out there for you. And if you're interested in product, again, we have a brand called Truemedx, and we sell, natural products through Truemedx. So all of this science that, I talk about and I talk about in Chip Talks is really translated into our brand called Truemedx. And there's some good stuff in that brand. Let's say there's some stuff that, I won't tell you which ones, but there's some stuff that are rising to the level of drugs, that we're talking to the pharmaceutical industry about, right? So we've got some super good stuff out there. And, when something rises to the level of a drug, I have to pull it from the market. So that's why I'm being kind of careful about what I say. So the stuff that we do have rising to the level of drugs, we will pull from the market when we have that validated and take those up the drug development path. Anyway, some good stuff out there, though. So that's all I'm saying is we've got some very powerful things out there. But the cool thing is you can do all this at home, right? So you can do this. The best thing about understanding our health and how we work is that we have all this power right out in nature. And it's just right there. And as we understand and learn this, you'll be able to heal yourself with teas and, eat this omega-3, chia seed or this fat cube that's the right, profile of fat, right? So that's what we're talking about. This is where all this is going. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week for another exciting version of Chip Talks podcast. Bye.